Oblique Seville is one of the fastest athletes in the world right now, and he is one of the fastest Jamaicans in history, having run a 100-meter personal best of 9.81 seconds, which is only behind the greats of Usain Bolt, Johan Blake, Asafa Powell, Kashane Thompson, Nesta Carter, and Steve Mullings, making him the 7th fastest Jamaican in history. Now in 2025, Oblique Seville is competing as a racer in Grand Slam track, which is Michael Johnson's new track league, which he just launched a few weeks back in Kingston and more recently in Miami. Oblique is part of the short sprints group, which at each of the different slams, he'll be running the 100 and the 200 meters. Now at the most recent slam in Miami, he ran a 100-meter time of 9.84 seconds, which was slightly windy with a plus 2.4 meters per second wind. But in the 200 meters, he dropped a time of 20.13 seconds, which was a personal best in the event for Seville. And after that performance, the track and field world was elated, as Seville had been one of the athletes who really had some untapped potential in the 200. So to see him drop his personal best, even just slightly, was a really positive indicator. At the meet, I got a chance to actually speak with Seville after the race, and he actually revealed something very interesting. Here's a clip.
If I don't have any issues with my toe, definitely I can take it on, but because of my toe, I have to be mindful at times when and where I run the 200 meter.
So your toe is like kind of a little aggravated?
Yeah.
Gotcha. How long has that been for?
High school days.
Oh, okay, forever. Yeah. So, I mean, did you feel comfortable kind of, because it's like you're consistently getting faster and faster, like do you feel like it aggravates you on the curve, or are you able to kind of just push through it?
It all depends, because sometimes it hurts a lot. So it depends on the degree of the pain. I can push through it.
So Oblique revealed that he'd been dealing with a toe injury over the past couple years, dating all the way back to high school, which has prevented him from actually competing in the 200 as frequently as he would have liked. And his frequency at running 200s is clearly indicated by the fact that he simply does not run the event frequently year after year. And even when he does run the 200, it's only during the early season, never actually during the main sprint season of May, June, or July. And that's borne out by what we've seen from Seville. He's been a core 100-meter sprinter, having made the Jamaican teams in 2021, 22, 23, and 2004, specifically in the 100, and from 2022 all the way to 2024, he's actually made the 100-meter final at Worlds and Olympics respectively. On top of that, he's run a personal best of 9.81, which, like I said at the top, is one of the fastest times in Jamaican history. And he has run 9.8 seconds a plethora of times throughout his career, again, dating all the way back to 2022 to more recently in 2024. So that 200 has simply not been on his schedule, but his explanation, the toe injury that dates all the way back to high school, explains exactly why. And also at the Kingston Grand Slam track meet, I actually spoke to Oblique Seville right before he ran the 200 there, and he actually kind of did hint at this injury situation and to why he doesn't run the 200 frequently.
I wanted to run some 200 for quite some time, honestly. And this is my opportunity to actually run the 200 meter, and I'm happy. But I will just take it as another stepping stone to help me with my 100 meter.
Why has that been there, that urge to run the 200 over the past couple of years?
Because I want to show some of my competitors that I can also perform in the 200 meter, but because of injuries and niggles, caused me not to perform.
Now at Kingston, after that interview, he went on to run 20.43 seconds. Again, this was about a month ago in early April, so not expecting anything too fast, but it is telling based on the explanation that he now gave here in Miami. So just to put his 200-meter performances in context in terms of the frequency that he's run year after year, if we look all the way back to 2019, when he was 18 years old, he ran 20.86 seconds into a negative 0.6 meter per second headwind. And he had run 10.13 seconds that year. So clearly he had the potential to run a lot faster in that 200, considering what he'd done in the 100, considering that running it into a headwind. He clearly had that 200-meter potential. But remember, he's 18 years old at this point, so he's already kind of dealing with this toe injury that he's alluded to when we spoke in Miami. Now, fast forward to 2020, and he only runs a time of 21.06 seconds, the only 200-meter race of that entire year. In 2021, he actually steps it up and runs 2 races, one in 20.68 seconds, but slightly windy with a plus 2.6 meter per second wind. And then he also runs 21.03 seconds, but that was into a negative 3.3 meter per second headwind. Again, clearly showing that he has the capabilities, he has the potential to be a very strong 200-meter runner. And this was all at the age of just 20 years old. Now, over the next 2 years, between 2022 and 2023, Oblique Seville simply did not run the 200 meters at all, which was likely an indication that his toe injury was probably aggravating him and he didn't want to make it worse than it already was and potentially set him back from competing and actually being potentially successful in the 100 in both 2022 and 2023 years, which he made the World Championship finals in Eugene and Budapest respectively. Now, fast forward to 2024 and Oblique actually does dip his toes back into the 200 and he runs a personal best of 20.17 seconds early in the year. And this really lined up with the potential we had seen from him previously, as well as what he was doing in the 100 where he had run a 9.82 as well as a 9.81 later in the 2024 season. Additionally, he also ran a 200-meter straight race down in Atlanta where he did run sub 20, but that was a straight 200-meter race, so significantly different than a curve. And also, when I was in Kingston, Oblique actually alluded to this, saying he did run sub 20, but he wanted it to be on a curve.
Generally, I think I can run 19 like in a 200-meter on the track. Because last year, I ran 19 on the straight, but that doesn't really count for me. But I really want to run 19 in a 200-meter bend.
Now, we arrive in 2025. Oblique is 24 years old and he's running in Grand Slam track. And in Kingston, he ran 20.43 seconds and then he ran this personal best of 20.13 seconds in Miami. So if we circle back to the interview where Oblique said he's been dealing with the toe injury since high school, we can kind of get a feel for that where looking back to 2019, when he was 18 years old, he actually ran the 200 on 8 different occasions that year. Now, it's very likely that his toe was, maybe injured a little bit or maybe not injured yet, but in the subsequent years, that's when he drastically dropped off from competing in the 200, doing it once, maybe twice a year, eventually really relegating himself to focus on that 100 because he didn't want to get himself more injured than he already was. And like I said earlier, though he has run the 200 once or twice, in the early season, the one time that he actually did run it in the season, when we're talking May, June, or July, was in 2024, but that was on a 200-meter straight as opposed to a curve. So running on the curve, that's going to aggravate his toe, whereas on the straight, like he does in the 100, that's not going to hinder him in any capacity for the most part. But as Oblique has said, he wants to prove that he is capable of being one of the better 200-meter runners.
I want to show some of my competitors that I can also perform in the 200-meter.
And now that he's in Grand Slam track, he is literally going up against some of the best in the world. We're talking about Kenny Bernard, we're talking about Zarnell Hughes, we're talking about Fred Curley. These are guys who have run very, very fast times at 200, and Oblique Seville kind of in the back of the pack as it relates to the racers with his 20.13 personal best. But him signing up for Grand Slam track, it might indicate that he's maybe gotten his toe a little bit under control, maybe not fully healthy, but it seems like it's manageable to the point where he can frequently compete in both the 100 and the 200 when talking about Grand Slam track, which occurs every single month. And if that's the case, then that's a very good sign, because when talking about 200-meter sprinting, running the curve is it's essential, right? You want to make sure that you're getting out as explosive as possible out of the blocks and potentially, holding tight with some of the other guys around the curve to come off almost like slingshotting yourself down to the straight. If you're not able to really work that curve, then you're not going to have as much success. Yes, we've seen guys like a Wallace Spearman who aren't able to run as strong on the curve and have a really strong second half. But when you're working with guys like a Kenny B, again, a Zarnell Hughes or whoever, who are really strong in the second half of their race, you're not going to want to leave things very late. So Oblique Seville, considering he's in Grand Slam track, we saw he had a very strong race in Miami, really going toe-to-toe, getting the same time as Zarnell Hughes. But if he wants to potentially step things up when we get to Philadelphia, when we get to Los Angeles, then he's really going to have to work that curve a little bit better than he might have in the past, again, considering that toe injury. And ultimately, he does want to get under that 20-second barrier, so that's going to be one of the keys here. But the overall goal for Oblique Seville is that he wants to use the 200 to improve upon his 100 meters.
This is my opportunity to actually run the 200 meter and I'm happy. But I will just take it as another stepping stone to help me with my 100 meter.
He wants to make sure that he can improve upon his speed endurance. That second half of the race, that's going to be essential to really holding on and not having some of the other guys surpass him, which has occurred in various different races, specifically talking about those championships. We know that Oblique is able to get a really strong start, which we've seen whether it's at global championships like Worlds or Olympics, or whether that's at the Racers Grand Prix when he was able to get the lead on Noah Lyles and really hold him off all the way to the line, getting a personal best at the time of 9.82 seconds. But to be able to really hold hold off guys when we get to the later half of the season. Guys like a Noah Lyles at championships, like Letsil Taboho, like a strong Kenny B, or even a Zarnell Hughes, who has a medal from the 2023 World Championships. These are guys who really have some strong second halves, and Oblique Seville is going to use the 200 to improve upon his 100 to really put together a complete race. He has a personal best of 9.81 seconds, which he ran at the Olympic Games in Paris last year, but he is more than capable of getting down to 9.7s, and if he's able to run 9.7 at the right time, that might just lead to a podium spot at the World Championships later on this year. But we're not going to predict that yet because there's still a long way to go. I'm excited to see what Oblique is able to do as we continue on with the Grand Slams this season, and as he's able to really push the boundaries of, his capabilities in the 200. Is he going to be able to get under the 20-second barrier? I think he's very likely to do it, probably in Philadelphia. But if not, maybe later on as well. But even if he doesn't, if he's healthy, it's certain that the 200-meter races that he's been running are definitely going to help bring his personal best in the 100 meters down to get under that 9.80 second barrier and dive into those 9.7s like so many other guys have. But let me know what you think about Oblique Seville. Did you know that he had a toe injury since high school, or was it kind of mysterious and you're kind of learning about it now? And do you think that he's going to be able to overcome some of those barriers and the injury setbacks to get under the 20-second barrier in the 200? And will that translate into a 9.7 second performance in the 100 later on this season in 2025? Let me know what you think. Be sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel. Always appreciate y'all. Thanks for watching.